Hi, I'm Tara Umbrazet. I'm the founder and senior lead planner here at South Bay Financial Partners. And in addition to being a CFP, I'm also a certified financial therapist level 1, CFT1, which means that I basically have learn some things and have some tools to help people deal with the softer side of financial planning, which is often the most important part. So today we're going to talk about holiday stress. And I found that this really comes from 4 quadrants. So I'm going to share this with you. A lot of times the stress comes either internally, externally, or externally. And I'll go through each one of these to tell you what that means and how that shows up. So the first one is internal. This is your expectations of yourself. So many of us go into the holiday season and we want to be the best gift giver. We want to be the best mom or sister or daughter or whatever and buy the best gift and make the best dinner for our friends and be the best host and all of these things about us and how we see, set our own expectations and how do we measure up to our expectations. The other thing that happens going into the holidays is we often have periods of the year like the holidays as sort of benchmarks or milestones that we wanted to be in a new job, in a new relationship, married, whatever it is, by the end of the year, which is the holiday season. The holiday season is an indication of the end of the year. And so we have these expectations going into the year that we wanted to have things done and in place by the end of the year. And so when we hit the holidays, if we haven't met those expectations and those goals, we tend to be really hard on ourselves. And that increases the level of stress. So that's has nothing to do with the holidays. That just has to do with you living your life and hitting this milestone that happens to be at the same time as gathering with all your friends and your families, which is a whole nother set of stress. So those are 2 different stresses that happen at the same time and can really just send people reeling. So, think about what stress is coming to you that's actually your expectations of yourself. And can you soften that a little bit? Not to say that you shouldn't have expectations and goals and things like that. Absolutely. But you should also be gracious with yourself, just like you would be somebody else, And one of the tricks that we use is think about if you set this expectation for yourself and you haven't met it, think about if your best friend had set that expectation and was going to miss it. What would you tell them? Most of the time, we're a lot easier on our friends than we are on ourselves. So think about that too. Do you really need to be as hard on yourself? Or can you just look at it and say, okay, I need to regroup and I need to come up with a new goal and go in a new direction. And sometimes you didn't meet those expectations because they weren't the right expectations for you. And that's okay. I see a lot of people not meeting expectations and then feeling like a failure when actually the expectation that they met or the goal that they made wasn't a good goal for them. They were setting somebody else's goal. And the reason why they didn't get there is because it really wasn't in their heart to get there at all. So take a moment and think about, is this actually what I even want to do? Or is this really coming from an external source, an expectation from an external source that I've taken on as my expectation, even though I don't really own that and I don't really believe that and I don't really want what that is. So think about where those stresses are coming from. And is it really holiday stress or is it something beyond the holidays that you're thinking about? Do you need to rethink your goals, your expectations of yourself? Are you actually choosing a journey that's right for you? Or are you trying to follow somebody else's journey that's really just not working for you and you need to let go of that? So those are really deep, hard questions. And you might need some help on that. So, find a friend or a family member that you trust, or you can call us and we have one-on-ones, financial therapy and financial coaching, to help you just sort of unpack that and just, examine it and figure it out for yourself. We don't give the answers, but we help guide you in asking the questions of yourself that can lead you to the answers that you're looking for. So that's internal, your expectations of yourself that aren't going to be met. And that causes stress in the holidays and as we approach the end of the year. Then there's the internal, external, your expectations of other people, your expectation of your family, your expectation of your partner, your expectation of the world, your work, and how they're going to show up for you or in this season, and it's a miss. So you might be somebody who loves the holidays and are really looking forward to that family dinner, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and you show up at your parents' house and your mom just didn't, or your dad didn't feel like doing it this year. They didn't bring their A game, and you were disappointed. Or you go home and you're expecting certain decorations or whatever, and it's just not there. Or you're going back for whatever holiday and you're expecting a warm family gathering, and you might even know like it's never been like that before, but you're hoping this year it will be like that. And so this is your expectation of how other people are going to show up for you, and they fail you, and then you feel disappointed, and you might even know that you're going to be disappointed. So even ahead of time, you start getting anxious about that, depressed about that, stressed about that, and what can you do to change them to make it the way you want it, when really maybe you should be thinking about why is that so important to you that they show up in that way? What are you hoping from them? And then maybe what do you need to change about yourself? What needs to shift in you to make that maybe a little bit more possible? Maybe you need to be a little bit more open and less judgmental and things. I'll tell you, when I've worked within my family that I find stressful sometimes, I've suddenly realized like how much of it was me propagating and continuing interactions that I didn't like. And I was thinking that it was starting with the other person, but it wasn't really starting. Well, it was starting with the other person, but the other person was triggering me, and my trigger made the situation bigger. And had my reaction to that been different, and it is now different, then the whole thing shifts, and it's not the volatility that it had been. And the reason why it was volatile was not because of them, it was because my reaction to them. So as soon as I changed my reaction, the whole situation changed. So think about how you can change to make the situation different and maybe a little more in alignment with what you're looking for. Don't look for other people to change, because they're not going to change. You're not going to change other people. But if you change and you shift, you might be surprised at how much they shift. But it has to start with you. You cannot change somebody else. You can only change yourself. So think about that. And then this third column is the external, internal. So this is other people's expectations of you. So you might be going home for the holidays and your parents are going to want to glow and gloat with their friends about how successful you are, and you're not feeling successful. And maybe, you thought you were going to be someplace else, or you wanted to be able to tell them that you were someplace else, that you had graduated or got a promotion or whatever. And you feel like you didn't do that. This often happens with people who have issues with substance abuse too, that, like they were alcoholics or addicted to marijuana or something, and they've been struggling with that, and maybe they were, in remission and off, but as they come into the holidays, they're stressing out, and they're thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this. This is too stressful, and they're going to expect that I'm not. Everybody's eyes are going to be on me. Everybody is going to be looking at me to see me being different. And this is, what you think other people are thinking about you. And the fact is, maybe they're not thinking that at all. It could totally be in your head. And one thing that I have noticed is what you think other people are thinking typically is not what they're thinking. And it's a really good idea to have a conversation with them and say, hey, I'm a little worried that you're expecting me and going to be looking at me to not be drinking this holiday, or to be behaving in a certain way, or to have accomplished something. And I'm sort of uncomfortable with that. And I'd like to talk about it before I get there. And that is an uncomfortable conversation. And it takes a lot of bravery to step into that. But it can make it so that the actual holiday and the actual coming together with your family and friends might go better if you have some of those pre-conversations about what you're worried about. And as I said, you might find out like they have no idea what you're talking about, or maybe they do have those expectations, and you can sort of set the groundwork that, like, I don't want eyes on me. I'm doing the best I can, and I might have a drink, and I don't want people looking at me and judging me, and just like, give me some space here. Um, have those conversations before you go into the situation, because it's a lot harder. You can't have the conversation in a constructive way in the moment. You can only have it out of the moment. So if you do it before, that's the best. If you wait until after, then you probably have some repair to do. But if you do it before, maybe you can prevent the uncomfortableness and reduce the stress for everybody, really. But anyways, those expectations that others have on us is a big one. And sometimes that shows up as, I think that everybody is expecting a lavish gift, an expensive gift. And so I overpay because I think that they're thinking that. And again, they might not be thinking that. I'll tell you right now, I'm not expecting an expensive gift from anybody. A homemade gift or an I love you is perfectly okay with me. And I'm not everybody. Everybody is going to be different. So talk to your loved ones and find out what is their expectations. Set expectations. Maybe you don't even ask them what their expectation. You figure out what works for you, and you can set that expectation for them, and you can let them know, I'm saving for a down payment on a home. I have to be more conservative this year in my gift giving, or whatever it is. But set those expectations before you go in, so that the stress goes away. Then you already have the reaction. They already know, and so they won't have a negative reaction when whatever hits, because they know that it's coming, and they can prepare for how they want to respond to that. So this is what other people are expecting of you. So having those conversations with those others, so that they know what you set the expectation, so that they're not stressed out or react in a negative way to you. If you set their expectations of what that looks like, what that's going to look like, it's going to be a lot easier for you. And then the external, and this usually doesn't affect you personally, but it can affect you because you witness it. So it might be, your parents' expectations of the world and how they're going to be loved and cherished by the world, and that they're expecting that, and maybe it usually doesn't happen, and then they're disappointed, and then they get angry, and blah blah blah. And it's the same old pattern that you've seen every single year, and it really has nothing to do with you. It has to do with other people, but you're in the energy sphere, and you're in relationship with these people who are having a meltdown, and that's stressful for you. It might be like a sister and her partner, and they argue every year, and that's stressful on you. You're not involved in that argument, but they're having it, and it's their expectation of each other. And again, you can have conversations with them before. That's a really great way to try to just make them aware that this happens all the time and it stresses you out, and that, is there any way that you can help? Is there any way that we can make the environment that it's, this isn't going to happen? Sometimes just shining a light on it makes people aware, like they didn't even know it was happening. So, but in all of these situations, being in a place where you're open and compassionate is super important. If you're not compassionate, curious, open, it's not going to land well having these conversations with other people or with yourself. So note that a lot of times, especially like these internal ones, they're parts of yourself. There's voices in your head that are telling you these things, your inner critic. And what I find is a lot of people with their inner critic, they think that inner critic is a bad thing, and it needs to be shoved out, and it needs to be controlled, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that usually is counterproductive in the long run, and it comes back to bite you. And what I found is, listen to that inner critic. What is it trying to say? The reason why it gets loud and becomes disruptive and behave badly is because it's not being listened to, because it is being shoved away. So if you can befriend your inner critic, find out what it's trying to tell you, what it's trying to do. Normally, the inner critic is trying to help you be your best self. Don't you want to be your best self? That's a good thing. Welcome that inner critic. But also, it's not the only voice in the room. There's other voices in the room, and there's other things going on. And so, listening to it, and taking the wisdom from what that inner critic has to say is super important and a really helpful thing to do. But then don't let it consume you and become the all and be all. There are other things going on. So, striving for getting the best presents, absolutely, that's a great idea. Missing the mark, absolutely okay. Like, you did your best. Shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. Okay, we're good. So a lot of times that inner critic, it's never enough. And it is enough. It's always enough. And so helping the critic understand, yes, we're striving to do better, we're striving to do our best, but what our best is and what comes out is enough, is enough. We are enough. We are worthy of the relationships we have. We want to have these relationships, and we want to have healthy relationships. And we can't have healthy relationships with other people if we don't have a healthy relationship with ourselves. If that inner critic can't be in relationship with all the other things that are going on inside of you, then you're not having a healthy internal relationship. And if you're not having an internal healthy relationship, it's really hard to have external healthy relationships. So start with yourself, have a little sit down talk with all of those parts that are going on that are triggering you and causing that anxiety or those reactions that are stressful and maybe cause anxiety, maybe cause depression, maybe all sorts of things. When something happens that you feel it, that there might be a gut punch, it might be a clenching, it might be a headache, it might be whatever. When you feel that, like, notice it, explore where is that coming from, try to understand what it's trying to bring to the table and appreciate what it's bringing to the table. And if you can do that with yourself, just having that conversation can really soften that stress a lot, maybe not all the way down to zero, but can reduce it a lot so that you can function better. And as you function internally better and in your own life, then, as I said, that will shine out to other people, your relationships with other people. But note that when you do connect with other people, the same thing's going to happen. You're going to be triggered by something, it's going to be a gut punch. Taking a moment to take a deep breath, maybe walk away from the situation and have an internal conversation like, what just happened to me? Why did that land like that on me? What am I worried about? What am I afraid is going to happen because of that conversation? And basically, you're probably going into a defensive mode. What am I defending? What am I, thinking is at threat, not safe in this conversation that caused me to have that reaction? And if you take care of yourself and love yourself, you can go back and have a compassionate, open conversation with that person about what they just said and how it affected you and, what's going on. Can we talk about this in a different way? So those are just a few tips about how to get through the holiday season. It does tend to be a stressful time, but taking some time out, and maybe even scheduling 15 to 30 minutes a day to just go inside and review what's happening and where are you feeling stressed and where is that coming from? And is it an expectation you have on yourself? Is it an expectation that you're having about somebody else or something outside you? Is it an expectation that you think that others have about you? Or is it an expectation about it's things that are external to you that has nothing to do with you, but that that you're going to somehow get sucked into and cause you stress? So just like thinking about what quadrant does your stress fall in is one step forward, and then maybe going the next step is why is that coming up? Why is this your problem? What are you worried about? What makes this unsafe for you? What do you need to get more strong internally about and be confident in yourself and know that you are okay, you are valuable, you are, worthy and lovable. And if nobody else but for you, that's okay too. But most likely once you realize that you're lovable, other people will be able to see that. You'll be able to see the love that people have for you. Because most likely they do have love for you and you're just not seeing it because you have all of these parts that are getting in the way, and hearing only the judgments and not hearing the love that comes in also. So just take a few moments to figure out where it's coming from, what's going on in you, and just being curious, asking questions, being open to your internal dialogue, and making sure that you understand what your internal system is trying to tell you to keep you safe, and make sure that you follow that. So happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful time and a little bit less stress. That's it.